We talk a lot about discipline and other positive parenting techniques here on the channel. Today, we're getting into the importance of playing with your child. Vicki, you and I had a chance recently to visit with the Langley child care providers up in Langley, British Columbia. It was a beautiful opportunity to connect with some really amazing people. Big shout out to you at Langley Community Services Society. Part of the topic that we got into was the importance of play, and we've also done another video on that particular topic. You can link to it right up there to watch next, and that will give you some additional information along this topic.
Play is essential to a child's development. Matter of fact, I have this little quote I was going to read to you. It said, "Play is so important to children's development that the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights recognizes it as a basic right for every child."
A basic right
Yeah.
for every child. Vicki, it is the work that children do.
Well, and you know, most parents, when you talk to them, or child care providers or whatever, they say, if I could just get him to regulate his own behavior. We might not use those words, but if he could just be in control, if he just stay focused, that's a lot of truth to it. Now, executive functioning is the way that we kind of learn how to control those behaviors and emotions.
Right.
And the way for a child to develop executive functioning is through
Play. That's right.
Yep. And so we're going to talk today about 4 types of play. Now, this is kind of child-initiated play. There's difference. You know, there's the kind of play that we are kind of encouraging them to play the way we want them to.
Or imposing it on them, maybe, in a way.
So this is child-initiated play. And one of the first things I have to say is that in order to be involved with child-initiated play, we have to have access to different materials. So give them lots of materials, toys, Legos, you know.
Craft
things like
supplies.
Right.
Different things that they can use their imagination and engage in play.
Right.
I'm thinking of our little neighbor kids who just over all these years as we've gotten to know them, they are so imaginative, and their parents have been really good about doing just that, providing them with opportunities and materials to be creative and to be innovative. And I think it's made a huge difference in those kids' development.
And our daughter-in-law does the same thing. She's always provides our grandkids with these great materials to play with.
Right.
So one of the first types of plays we're going to talk about is exploratory. Now this is where they're just playing with the materials to explore them. So maybe they've got the paint all over their hand and they're just kind of playing with it or whatever. So they're just playing with the material to explore how it works.
Check it out. It's not necessarily paint in their mind.
No, they're trying to figure out this goo
stuff that they're interacting with. Now, we as parents, sometimes we get a little uptight about, well, that's not the way you use paint. That's not the purpose of exploratory play.
Right.
It's for them to simply learn things about their world and the elements that are in it. So as they stick their hands in it, and you're prepared for this.
Yeah, I put a smock on
because you've got them dressed up in a way that protects the clothing, or you've got them in clothing you don't care about. You've got tarps or whatever down to lower your anxiety as a parent.
Because it's not bothering them in any way.
No, they're having a great time.
Right.
Kids will do this with their food sometimes. Now, there's times and places for everything. But could there be a time and a place where the macaroni and cheese gets to go right on their head? Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Let's just not be so rigid as parents that we stop that important developmental process of exploratory play.
After exploratory, we move into constructive play. And that's where they're actually going to use the materials to develop or create something. So that's where they build the house, or they make, you know, a telephone out of the wire, or, you know, whatever.
And this is where that imagination starts to kick in. We're going to get to that in the next phase as well. In the constructive phase of play, or the constructive type of play, they're now using the materials that you've made available to them to actually make something.
And remember, we talked about the importance of play because this is how a child learns. And realize that in constructive play, and all these plays, but especially from here forward, you're going to plan something. Maybe the child decides they want to make a castle, right? You plan, you do, Then you review how it went. Maybe you find out, oh, the base wasn't quite big enough. It fell over before I wanted it to. So you're going to review what happened.
Okay.
And this brings about learning, at which point you start a new plan, another do. So this is that whole cycle of learning.
It's a learning cycle, right? I was thinking of that as a cycle as you described it, Vicki.
It's a cycle. And that helps to develop that executive thinking.
Now, in addition to the exploratory play and the constructive play, there's a couple of other levels, and I think, am I getting this right? The next one is imaginative.
Or pretend.
Or pretend.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're going to pretend to be, mommy at the grocery store, or you be the teacher and I'm going to be the student, or they pretend many different things. I'm a policeman.
I'm a fireman and I'm going to come and put out the fire. And so they
And
set
maybe
up
they
these
don't even take a
scenarios.
role, but they're just like, hey, let's pretend there's somebody coming in the door and we're going to scare them,
Right.
That
So
pretend.
using the imagination to set up different scenarios, play those through. This is one of the ones that I really get enthusiastic about because I can see from a psychological perspective how this gives kids an opportunity to experiment with different potential outcomes or scenarios that they might encounter, and they get to manage that in a controlled
Right.
play environment that's imaginary.
And another thing,
Facing
too.
fears, all kinds of things
yeah.
can happen.
And they also learn a lot social, because a lot of the times this pretend play is happening with another child. And so you
it
get
becomes
to
more
pretend.
interactive
You've
now,
got
too.
interactive, you've got social. But one of the greatest things is that it teaches them sometimes to take on perspective. The perspective of another person or of an outcome or an emotion. And that's something that you don't really get when playing with just a screen. You need materials, you need
Yes.
other people, exposure.
This helps them to build empathy and start to interact with other people in healthy and constructive ways. And that leads to the other type of play, which has to do with games.
And this is one that follows kind of set rules, that has rules that you play
There's
by.
more structure to it.
There's structure and rules. Now, this can also be, even, I've forgotten what those calls, but those sticks that you bounce together and you're jumping through them. It's not
yeah.
even
I can
necessarily
picture
a
that.
game that you roll a dice or something, but it might be a game where
There's
there are
routines
rules
and
and routines.
patterns.
And even kids make up their own rules that, we're going to play this, and so you guys have to go over here, and there's rules.
Right.
And this is really important for the kids to learn how to work within rules and how to play within rules.
That also adds a social element because I know sometimes kids want to make up their own rules and the other kids aren't quite down for that. So it teaches them how to enroll people into this game, or how to negotiate, or how to come up with different alternatives to the original plan that they had. And it goes back to that learning cycle: plan, and then do or execute.
Review.
Get the feedback and do the review, and then the learning takes place and you repeat the cycle. Thank you for being here on the channel. Thank you for being a conscious, positive parent. We're thrilled to be part of your team. If you haven't yet joined us in the Parenting Power Up, Vicki and I have collaborated to put together a number of resources that I think you're going to be excited about. You can click on it right over there.
I saw her standing in the street alone. Her head was down, face